While the debate rages on over what happened at Tottenham Liverpool last week, the great and good of soccer punditry still can't seem to agree the best course of action for us bettors used to bad beats. There is no need to delay the restart. This is Betting Weekly Premier League show. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, while Nigel Seeley and Jack Wright are with me, not to pour over VAR recordings, but to point you in the right direction when it comes to the best bets across week 8 of the English Premier League. Nigel, the VAR debate rages on, but I've got to be honest here, really honest. I'm not interested at all. And I think as bettors, we get desensitized to having bad beats and we move on quickly. It's something you've got to be able to do to control your emotion when you're betting on a pretty much daily basis, as far as I'm concerned. You can't let things linger. For me, it was done and dusted. It's a mistake. Move on. Thoughts?
Oh, 100%. I mean, your life goes on. The debate decision, I mean, betters ups and downs. You judge it at the end of the year, don't you? End of the season, you have some good things go for you, some bad beats go for you at the end of the season. It leveled itself out of a period of time. I mean, I bet under 2.5 goals in that match. So, hope, 96-minute own goal. I mean, I'm not going to, there's people who go on social media and start swearing and cursing and going crazy and asking for refunds and stuff like that. Well, if you're going to behave like that, you shouldn't be betting, really, to be. So, I mean, it goes on. You've just got to deal with it. If you have got a problem with it, you're obviously betting too much and probably can't afford to gamble. So to have a look at it yourself. But for me, I mean, there's bad decisions every week, and it's not VAR. It's the officials that are doing it. I mean, the problem isn't with the technology; it's the people who are using the technology. So it is one of those things, and it was going to happen, wasn't it? It was inevitable. This kind of thing would happen with what was going on, but. Let's look on. And replays and calling for that. We'll be calling for them every single week. The season would never end. So not for me. Get on with it.
I'm quite for it, actually, on reflection, because my profit and loss would go through the roof if I could replay all my losing bets. Jack, the serious point is here. It's a discipline that bettors have to have. You've got to move on. You've got to wipe your mouth and move on. You've got to think, well, what's the next bet? And I can't let the previous bet affect what I'm just about to do.
100%. Yeah, I think keeping the discipline, taking the emotion out of it is probably one of the first things that I learned when years ago when started to bet regularly and successfully, and that was a key learning, really. As I say, you twist yourself in knots. You then start clouding your judgment. You're betting with a bit of anger. You won't go back to that. You won't do this, and it becomes a complete mess. So no, absolutely keep a clear head. I won't say that everything evens itself out, but you get bad beats, you get a lucky break. Obviously I had I had 2 Tottenham goals in that, so I got a fortunate break at the end as Nigel suffered a unlucky beat. So it's it's all balanced. So we've seen it over the course of the season already, where you go, oh, that was unlucky, oh, that was a bit lucky, and you tend to hear about the people moaning about it being unlucky rather than going, oh, I got a bit fortunate with that one. But I say it is what it is, all part of the game. Crack on, say keep a clear head, don't get too high, don't get too low, and you'll be all right.
You've only got to look at this show, though, Dan, haven't you? I mean, we had a 96-minute winning goal go for us in Nottingham Forest a couple of weeks back, a double play. We had a goal there in the 96th minute, which went against me and for Jack. It does level itself out of the season. It really does. If you look at all your bad beats, and there's tennis, for example, I do a lot of tennis matches. The amount of times I've had tennis players who are serving for the match and haven't seen it through. But then you forget about the ones that win 6-2, 6-4.
Always.
So you forget about them ones, but you always remember those ones that go for you and go against you. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's a profit business, and what your balance sheet at the end of the season, what's in your bank balance, and what your P&L shows at the end of the season is all that counts.
And the show so far this season, thanks to Nigel and to Jack, is running at 15.63 return on investment. We've had our bad beats, but we've had our very, very good selections. Plenty to get through over the course of the Premier League weekend. We're going to kick off Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Luton against Tottenham here. Luton a big price at plus 650. Tottenham short, minus 235 here. The goal line is over and under 3.5 goals. Luton beat Everton last week, Jack, to scupper a number of our bets, and I suspect that a lot of bettors over the course of the weekend were cursing Everton not being able to get over the line against what I consider the worst team in the Premier League. I thought that they were a bit unlucky. You've gone a little bit off the menu, as you can do here with your selection. Talk us through your play for Luton Tottenham.
Yeah, how to get Tottenham on side in this one. I think you ask 100 people, 99 of them would say that they're fancying a Tottenham winning this one. But you're right, it's not easy to get them on side with a minus 235. And it was a huge win for Luton last week. first win. Everyone was talking about, record low totals, etc., etc., etc. So it was big to get that on the board out of the relegation zone. It's tight at the bottom, and that's the sort of thing that can happen. So, what I would suggest for them is the fixture list has not been kind in any way, shape, or form for them. No chance to kind of use that momentum and ride the crest of a wave going into this big game this weekend. And we talked about the benefit of Spurs not having any European football this season. That's a big one. The fact that they can rest the players that got knocks like Son, like Maddison. And they also got knocked out of the Carabao Cup. So it is literally a case of play the Premier League, rest, recuperate, prep, train, and go again the following weekend. Same with Luton, generally speaking, obviously not in Europe, and also out of the Carabao Cup. However, the fixture list, given the postponement of that earlier game, Burnley on a Tuesday, straight after that Everton win, and brought back down to earth with a big bump going into this game against Tottenham. I think for me, they expended a lot of effort and energy into that Burnley game. You're right in the fact that they were a little bit unfortunate in it. Conceded a late goal in the first half, but then battered Burnley in the second half as they attempted to get an equaliser. Took them all the way until the 86th minute to do so. Thought they'd probably salvage a point. You could see the scenes in the crowd and also the manager going mad at the fact that they looked like they've got a really important point against a relegation rival, only for 64 seconds later to concede one and then pick it out the back of the net again. So it was important for me. I heard Rob Edwards said after the game, said that he was disappointed, obviously would do, but saying that his players were emotionally drained by it, flat and hurt by the result. You don't really want to be hearing that as far as a Luton supporter is concerned. So they've got to go again here, and they've got to go again on a Saturday. And also, it's the early kickoff, as you said. So effectively, as little prep time as you possibly can get. Spurs, of course, they had that big win themselves last weekend as well. Don't know if anyone heard about it. I think they won a fairly casual game against Liverpool 2-1. And have kept that unbeaten run going under Postecoglou in the league. Superb start. We've talked about it a lot. Scored 2 goals in every single game in the Premier League. In fact, exactly 2 apart from one where they beat the same Burnley side 5-2 at Burnley. So a good comparison there. He's expected to do the same. Bet Rivers have got Spurs at minus 240 to score 2 or more goals again in this one. They're plus 135 to score 3 or more goals as well. So we know what kind of scoreline we're expecting. And as a result of that, you've got to expect Son to be on the score sheet. And that's the selection for me at minus 105. I was hoping to get plus money, but minus 105 I'll take. And he's been superb. Obviously, been moved central. The first game he had central was in that Burnley game. Scored a hat-trick in that one. He's now played 4 games in a more central role for Spurs. And he scored in 3 of those 4. He's had 15 shots, 9 on target, scored 6 goals in total. And the thing that really caught my eye this week is when I looked into it, that he's been assisted by 4 different players for those 6 goals. So he's connecting well with all different parts of the team. And Postecoglou went with a front 4 with Richarlison on the left, Maddison in that 10 role, and Kulusevski on the right. The fullbacks have been exceptional as well, creating lots of chances. And Son's been a part of that, creating the space, but then being between the posts to be taking advantage of it. So superb stuff, given they had to solve the conundrum of how they're going to cope with that Harry Kane. And Son has been the man to step up for that. So taking him to get on the score sheet again.
So Son to score, a shade minus money, minus 105. Nigel, just a quick word on Son from you, because as Jack points out here, he's a central striker now. He's the main man now. Harry Kane's gone. And a lot of bettors are looking to get to him every single week, and he's delivering.
And he's the skipper. So he's got a huge amount of confidence. He's going to be the manager's giving him an amount of trust. We it sounds crazy to say this, but Haaland hasn't had a great run in the last 3 or 4 games, has he? I mean, 3 matches, I suppose. It's a bit of a blip for him. He's not scoring regularly. Despite scoring 8 goals already in the Premier League, we're saying he's a blip. A lot of people are taking him out in their fantasy team this week. I've taken him out already. So he's going to, what he's going to do this week. He's going to put a hat-trick in. But, he's definitely a contender for the top goal scorer, the way that Tottenham have been scoring goals. But just one thing before we go on to my pick here. You mentioned there we've got a 15% return of investment. I mean, really, it's due to Jack in recent weeks. I mean, 3 clean sweeps in the last 4 weeks. Tremendous tip in there. Really been keeping the ship alive. Whereas I think I would have sort of sunk it on them underwaters. But he's done really well to Jack in the last few weeks. So it's really mainly meant to do with Jack rather than myself here. But good run as well. But I think Son, I like that play. You got to expect them to score goals, and Son, if they do score, Son and Maddison are going to be right up there in the
Son is plus 1,200 to be top goal scorer in the Premier League. Erling Haaland at
Good each
minus
way bet,
500
you
at
can
the
get each
moment.
way the first three. That's a good each way bet.
You'll get each way somewhere. Certainly that type of price, double figure odds in the UK. Burnley, Chelsea for you, Nigel, to focus on first and foremost. I mean, Jack mentioned it as well. I thought that, Burnley might have been a little fortunate against Luton. I looked at various different expected goals metrics, and from a few different firms, they all had Luton having more expected goals than Burnley here. They take on a Chelsea side I'm still not convinced about, even though they got 2 in 2 minutes. I mean, I know you'll play here and you can explain it in a second. But when Chelsea scored 2 in 2 minutes midway through the first half, you think surely they've got to go over. But they didn't, Nigel.
Yeah, I think Chelsea are that sort of a side that everyone expected to lift up the table. Everyone thinks they're going to be in the top 8, I suppose, in the Premier League. But is this team that good enough to be a top 8 side? I mean, if you look at them individually, are they a top 8 side? I'm not sure if they are. We know they've got problems scoring goals. Jackson returns from suspension this weekend, so he'll be in the side. But he's literally hit or miss, and at the moment he's more missed than hit. Sterling is on the bench. Obviously, he's not getting into the side. So really, when you look around it, you think, where are the goals? They've also got a lot of players injured. I mean, there's a huge amount of players injured, and they've also got injuries to the 2 goal scorers who scored in midweek. They've got thigh injuries for Mudryk and the other guy. I can't remember his name.
Breuer.
Yeah, he's an injury doubt as well. So there is some kind of, we don't really know the personnel that Chelsea are going to play. And I just think that Chelsea just go through the motions now, thinking, right, okay, Pochettino's just like, let's just get the win and move on, until they get that squad back, until they get everyone back from fitness. We don't know how good this Chelsea team are. So I think they'll just be happy with picking up any win, 1-0, 2-0, whatever. If you look at Chelsea's last few matches, their last 5 matches all have cashed under 2.5 goals. Both teams have scored has been a no in all those matches. The problem isn't for Chelsea defensively. Defensively, I think they're all right. I mean, they look good. They look solid at the back again. Thiago Silva is obviously back in the team and looking good again. So they look a solid unit defensively. It's attacking. That's where they're really letting them down their analytics and their metrics on their goal scoring ability. So I don't think they're going to. Burnley won't cause them too many problems. And you just said the XG on Burnley last week against Luton, the poorest team in the Premier League, we all believe to be one of 2 of the poorest teams in the Premier League, was really, really poor. And they're quite fortunate to get the win there. So I think from Chelsea, it's just a question of just like Chelsea. I think Chelsea would probably win this 1 or 2-0. That's a similar kind of performance as what we saw against Fulham. If you look at Burnley this season, though, I mean, at home, they could have had a tough run. Man City, Villa, Tottenham, Man United. I mean, and now the Chelsea, that's their first 5 games at home. They've obviously lost all 4 of those matches there. The closest one being a 1-0 defeat against Manchester United. And on the road for Chelsea in their last 2 matches, 2-0 defeat, a 2-0 win at Fulham and a 0-0 draw at Bournemouth. So you can see that Fulham and Bournemouth are probably slightly higher on the ratings of Burnley, but not that far. And both of them cashed unders, and both of them, Chelsea kept them to a clean sheet. So they made a shutout. I would be quite interested in both teams to score no here. I think if I was looking for a correct score, which we do the correct scores on the Instagram account, probably a 1-0 Chelsea win here. But I think at plus money, which is plus 110, I just think under 2.5 goals is the value. Now, people might look at me and think, here he goes again on his under 2.5 goals, but it's all about the price. I mean, I wouldn't bet under 2.5 goals here at minus 125. And admittedly, I've done my conkers, like betting on the unders this season. And last night in the Champions League, I bet 4 unders. 2 of them were, and one of them was the Lazio game where the goal was in the 96th minute. Now, are you telling me that's a bad bet or I've been a bit unlucky? I think I've been a little bit unlucky on some of these. A lot of late goals. We know the injury times here, but the way that Chelsea are playing at the moment, until they get all those stars back, I think they just want to get 3 points and just climb up that table gradually. Pochettino isn't sort of a massive go-getter in terms of the way he plays. He's very cautious in his approach. He's very strong defensively. All these sides are set out very tactically and very good defensively, very strong to break down, very hard to break down. And I just think here Chelsea nick it 1-0, 2-0, and I'm going to go for under 2.5 at the price of plus 110. I think plus 110 is a little bit too big.
Yeah, fair price, really good bet. I think it's certainly one of my bets for the weekend.
Oh,
very.
Oh, that's what you said last week.
This only bet you said. I said it was my best bet, Everton. Listen, I backed him. I backed him.
And then look what happened. Please don't agree.
I'm covering this game, and I'm going to play on this. Very, very quickly, if I said to you, you've got $10, which team finishes higher in the Premier League, Manchester United or Chelsea, Jack?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
Nigel.
Chelsea.
Jack.
Man United.
Interesting. Let's move on to Fulham versus Sheffield United here. Fulham -165, Sheffield United +480. Jack, you were right with the unders. Fulham, Chelsea last week. Both teams, if you back them in every single game this season for unders, you're making a profit. Only a small one for Fulham, but you're going in again here on the under 2.5 goals.
Yeah, I saw nothing from Fulham on Monday night to convince me that I need to change my train of thought on them. I just asked myself, where's the creativity coming from? And I had to have a long think about where that was coming from. From what I saw, I watched the game Monday night. Willian probably was the most lively around the box, looking to thread balls through. He's 35 now. We know he's been a great player in the Premier League, but he's coming to the end of that career now. And obviously, he was looking to go to Saudi. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go over there in like maybe January window. So that side of it is poor for them. So the under 2.5 goals play here for me is big. It's -108 for these two sides. I like the midfield of Fulham, but it's an industrious midfield. It's not that sort of midfield that's going to like blind you with beautiful, dazzling football. Pellegrini is a great player, covers the ground well, good in the tackle, loves to play those diagonal balls, and they've got two fullbacks that love to bomb on and get deep onto the pitch and get crosses into the box. And of course, over the last 2 or 3 seasons, who have they had in the middle? Mitrovic, arms out, strong, aggressive header, scoring goals, making goals from kind of half chances. They're doing the same thing now. And I feel really bad to say this about Jimenez because of where he's come from. But, you know, it's obviously a pale imitation to have Jimenez as a replacement for Mitrovic. You know, that injury that he suffered 3 years ago, you know, it was not nearly a career-ending injury. It was nearly a life-ending injury, wasn't it? It was horrific. So absolutely incredible fair play for him. The fact that he's made it back and playing at this level, playing international football as well, but is just a shadow of that player, and understandably so. That, you know, for someone that was good aerially and was again a similarly kind of type of an aggressive player, he hasn't quite got that edge anymore, and has completely struggled. That's highlighted by the fact that he scored 6 Premier League goals in his last 56 games. It's understandable, but it doesn't help Fulham as far as they've got him as their focal point to try and score goals. He came off, Vinicius came on, same scenario. Balls are coming into the box, and I saw him, he's getting on the end of them, but it looked like he had a pillow wrapped around his head. That was just like a cushioned header. It was just soft, and there was no threat to it at all. So you'd imagine Mitrovic there, he probably would have scored one or two of those in midweek, and that's how it's been over the course of the season. Their XG battles have been terrible. They've only won one of those. That came against Crystal Palace when they managed the mighty 0.6 XG against 0.3. That was a memorable 0-0 draw. And Sheffield United, obviously the opponents here, have lost all their XG battles and only managed to get one or more in 2 games. That was Everton and West Ham. These two sides sit in the bottom 4 for XG, and we can talk about the benefits of it. But for me, it's a good metric as far as to saying, are you creating chances? If you are, have you got the players to finish them off? They're not creating chances, and they haven't got the players to finish them off. So 7.54 for Fulham, 5.91, the worst in the league for Sheffield United. And these two sides share the lowest amount of shots taken so far this season. 66 for both of them is the joint lowest in the league. And as a result, they've only scored 5 goals each, which is the joint lowest in the league. So, yes, they've conceded a few, but when you've got two sides that can't score goals going against each other, then that, for me, is an unders bet. It doesn't matter what their defence has been like. We've seen it. Great stats from Nigel last week as far as the bounce back after that 8-0. I think they're still suffering from that, and they're still conscious of that and want to make sure they'll keep it tight, Sheffield United. They do like to defend by forcing crosses into the box and heading them clear, a championship-style defence, and they'll get that against Fulham. So I think that plays into their hands. And up front, again, they've not got much. They've got Archer, who's a promising talent, but unproven at this level. And they've got McBurney, who works hard, but he's not a goal scorer. 1 point from 7 games highlights that. But as I outlined previously, that Newcastle game was the only blowout, and everything else has been quite tight and competitive. They'll take a point here for me. They'll try and nick 3, but I think they want to get a foothold. I've seen both Luton and Burnley obviously get 3 points this week. Their main rivals down the bottom there, but they need to get a foothold. They need to find a way of getting a point, especially in these away games. Tight, defensive, compact. They'll sign for a 0-0 now, in my opinion. And that's why under 2.5 is the play for me at -108.
Under 2.5 for Jack. I mean, I was going to say, Nigel, my only concern with the bet is that, you know, do both teams target a win here? Do they think this is a winnable game and they might be a bit more ambitious?
They probably will do, but have they got the personnel to be that ambitious? I'm not sure if they are. I think Sheffield United games at the moment, they're not going to score anything. It's just whether how many they're going to concede. I mean, they've got nothing in attack. I think Luton have got a better attack than Sheffield United. Very, very weak going forward. It's just a question of whether they can hold out for 0-0, I believe. I mean, anything with under in, I love.
Man United versus Brentford next up. We've got a pick from Jack, but United here, Nigel, a minus 155 every single week when they play at Old Trafford. They're short price favourites. They were minus 230, I think, in midweek against Galatasaray. They were beaten. You can't back Manchester United at minus money at the moment, can you?
You can't, but you can't really back Brentford either. I mean, if they were playing another team, I would think there's potentially a chance. But the way Brentford are playing at the moment, I wouldn't be betting them either. But Manchester United, just you should know more than me. You're more connected with Manchester than I am. But I wouldn't bet them at minus 155. But I think Brentford as well. I couldn't bet Brentford either.
Discipline an issue. We've seen, Jack, over the course of a number of games this season. Casemiro is an absolute red card magnet. I mean, he's going to be suspended for the next Champions League game, but he's going to play here. And your bet is based on the cards here. Talk us through your play for Man United Brentford. Yeah,
simply over 4.5 cards in this one at plus 117. So plus money on this looked too big for me. So kind of I base this on the fact that the game state, two sides that are desperate to get a positive result. Man United would definitely be looking for a target and a win in this one. They need to. And Brentford, as Nigel said, in bad form themselves. So they need to get, again, another side. They need to get a foothold in the league because they're slipping closer and closer to that relegation zone. And we've got a great referee as far as cards are concerned in this one. So this one ticked all the boxes, and I was happy to put it into my selection. So, United generally, I have an interest in their games because, as you say, their discipline is pretty poor. And I just feel that they need a reaction here. They're on the verge of some terrible records. There's three that caught my eye. They've lost 6 of their first 10 for the first time since 1986-87. Who was the manager that season?
Big Ron.
Fergie.
Big Ron. And then
Big
Fergie,
Ron.
yeah. So Big Ron was dismissed as a result of that run. And it's interesting to note that Ten Hag's now been trimmed into plus 450 to be the next manager sacked behind Higginbottom. So bad result here. Danger signs. But second stat is that this could be the first time they've lost 3 games in the top flight at home since 1979. Getting closer to be able to say before we were all born.
On the trot, you mean? In succession?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave Sexton.
Possibly. Yeah. You can have that one. And they've also conceded 18 goals from their first 10 games, which is
randomly shouting out Manchester United.
I thought it was another managerial question. I lost the first one. I wanted to get a chance to equalise.
Louis van Gaal.
It was over. Could be anyone. 1966-67 was the last time they conceded more than that from their first one. So could be. You're right.
Walter Guinness. What's it? Walter Guinness. Half a Guinness, brother.
Right. Anyway, we'll go on. Midweek, you're right. Galatasaray, absolutely shocking performance. Couldn't get any worse. They led twice. They conceded 3 goals. They gave a penalty away. They had a man sent off. It was the poster campaign for an absolute shambolic home performance. And it's been a bit of a theme, isn't it? We saw them lose to Brighton. That was the first in 31 and thought, well, expected, but a blip. But Palace and now Galatasaray beat them as well. So cards is what we want in this one, as I said. So I think Brentford come here in bad form, 1 win in 7, and they love taking on the bigger sides, don't they? We saw them in their first Premier League game when they came up, beating Arsenal by being a bit of a bully inside. They also battered Man United 4-0 a couple of weeks after that and did the double over City last week. So they've got the potential there. They are missing Tony, but they are an aggressive side. They also like to play in transitions, and that all leads to cards. So a few stats basically on the cards here. Man United's 4 home games so far this season have seen 24 yellow cards. They've contributed 11 of those as well, so virtually half. 12 is the highest amount of cards picked up by a home side so far this season, so it shows you what that's about. So an average of exactly 6 this season, over 4.5, which is what we need for this bet, has landed in 3 of those 4 games. Brentford away games have even higher average, 21 cards in 3 games, so an average of exactly 7. And they've also 2 of those 3 games have seen the home team pick up a red card. So that's one to keep an eye on as well. As you say, plenty of Man United players that could fill into that criteria. 6, 7, and 8 cards in those 3 away games as well. So cross the line that we need in all 3 of those. There was 5 in this one last year as well. And United picked up 4 in that defeat at Brentford last season too. So Andy Madley is the referee, and he's the guy that we pinpointed last week in that Brighton game. He did the business for us then. He showed 8 yellow cards last weekend. He's now shown 33 yellow cards and 1 red card in his 5 Premier League games this season. That's the joint most of any referee in the Premier League. Only Anthony Taylor can match that, but he's had 1 game more. And there's only 1 referee with a higher average than his 6.67, and that's Darren England. And I think he's had enough attention this week, so we'll move on from that. As far as Madley's concerned, this season in the Premier League, 3 cards, 5, 8, 8, and 12 is what he's shown. So over 4.5 at plus money looks a solid play given all those contexts.
Those are the stats, and that is the bet. The United Brentford game over 4.5 cards at plus 116, 117, something like that. Palace Forest for Nigel next. This is 12:30 Eastern. Palace plus 115. Favourites to beat Forest here off the back of that really good win at United. Nigel, bit of recency bias for you in this pick or not?
No, not at all. I look at Palace as obviously a side that I always like to get with at home. I think not last season before they were exceptional at home. Last season they dropped it a little bit. So they're always a good side at home. They usually beat the teams in or around them and struggle against the teams at the top end of the table. They usually get beat by the Arsenal and Manchester cities of this world, but they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. I looked at this fixture last year. So Palace against Nottingham Forest last year. I would Palace to win this match last year were minus 150, and they were minus 162 with one bookmaker. And that was the last match of the season. It was a 1-1 draw. But that's, if you look at it, it's 8 matches ago in terms of, no, it's not really, it's months ago, it's end of May, but it's 8 matches in terms ago. And now they're plus 116. I don't believe that Palace have gone backwards enough to go from minus 150 to plus 116. I certainly don't think Nottingham Forest warrant the support that they have done here. Forest at home, I've bet the last 2 weeks, draw no bet on one, and I've lost. I've got a push and a loss on one of them. And they haven't been doing it at home, and that is a concern for me because they were so strong at home. Their away form, as we know, last season was absolutely diabolical. They only won once in 19 matches. They conceded 44 goals, which is the highest of any other team in the Premier League. And they only scored 11, which was the lowest of the Premier League. So the worst defence and the cheapest attack. Only 1 win. Now they go to Palace, plus 116. This season, they haven't really done that much either. 1 win, 1 draw, they beat Chelsea away. But Palace are okay. They lost against Arsenal, but they've beaten Wolves. They drew with Fulham. Nottingham Forest are probably in that kind of pack with those two sides, probably a similar kind of level to those. And I just think it's a value play at plus 116. I would probably make Palace around about even money, potentially a slight minus money here. But the comparison of minus 162 last season to plus 116 this season is too big for me not to play. I'm going to go with Palace here. Just purely and simply from the price. Just looking at the research, looking at where the two teams are. I don't think as much really has changed between the two of them. Forest have probably slightly gone up. Palace have probably slightly gone down on my ratings. But there is a big difference in the price, minus 162 to plus 116.
Listen, Nigel, and you'll know this more than me, but you have to trust the market more than you trust the results. And as you just pointed out there, you're only talking back end of last season. Have Palace regressed that much? Have Nottingham Forest got that better? And one thing that bettors should always do is you look at the band of teams, you look at the prices, you see what they were last time, and you try and work out, why it's different. And if it is different, and if you've got a plus money play like this, then it's value. This is nothing to do with the United game last week, as you mentioned. It's more to do with the fact what Palace can do in similar games and why the prices are
the other thing about Palace, though, the other reason why I wouldn't really take too much about Palace on the Manchester United game is Palace historically are a much better side on the road. They've beaten Manchester City twice in the Premier League at big prices. That if you bet one team in the Premier League over the last 3 seasons on the road, Palace would make you more money than any other team because they've had those big wins. But they are decent at home. It's just a price that I just think is just the wrong odds compared to what it was this time or a month ago or 2 months, or a few months ago, back in the last season. So I'm going to go for Palace here at plus 116.
Brighton, Liverpool, both involved in European action. They take each other on 9 a.m. Sunday. Nigel's got a play in this one. Liverpool are favourites plus 120. Brighton, the darlings of of a lot of bettors and football fans and neutral fans where they've slipped recently. And you know, Nigel, that Liverpool are going to come out all guns firing for this one, given what happened in the Premier League last time out. I won't back Liverpool at plus 120, but I can see why the favourites. Give us your thoughts on this game and your pick.
Well, this is totally swimming against the tide. This is like sometimes what I like to do is, I like to do this more than often, is go against every public perception. I can imagine you going to every single YouTube channel, every single betting show on about the Premier League this season, and there'd be a random guy churning off stats about Brighton against Liverpool and betting over 3.5 and over 4.5 and all this stuff. But the guy's never bet more than a tenner in his life. And I think that's a big factor here. I think this could be the classic under 3.5 goal market, because the line has just gone crazy. It's gone up to 3.5 goals, which is the stable market with the volume. The over 2.5 is like -$3 or -275. Now, you can bet over $3. You can bet over 2.5 goals, and you might win. You might say I'm talking rubbish, but if you're betting over 2.5 goals in Premier League games this season at -$3, you won't make money in the future. This is about trying to teach people how to bet properly and to be able to look at lines and think this wrong. Now, there's a reason why I like this. 3.5 is a big number. 2.5, there's a lot of games that come in. 3.5 is a big number. If we look at Liverpool this season, 6 of their 7 matches have all cashed over 2.5, which obviously 3 cashed for you. But on the 3.5 line, only 3. You would have lost money by betting Liverpool over 3.5. Only 3 of those 7 cashed. So that brings it up. Go to Brighton, completely opposite. All 7 of their matches this season in the Premier League have cashed on over 3.5 goals. But I go back to my point I made last week. When you have that big defeat, you work all week on defence. Now, Brighton will be embarrassed by that performance against Aston Villa. They've been absolutely embarrassed. They would have worked on their defence. They would have probably come in with a tactically. They will know Liverpool will throw everything at them. They might have a different tactic this time around. If they go toe-to-toe with Liverpool, as we saw against Aston Villa, they're going to get ripped to shreds. So they've got to have to think about it differently. The other thing for this match as well is that Brighton is travelling back from European football on Thursday. They're playing tonight in Marseille, and that's a huge match for them. We don't know the outcome of that match, but we've seen so many times where teams come back from European football, they have a little bit of a lull. Liverpool are obviously at home. They're going to feel out a completely different side as well. They met 3 times last season. Every single one would have cashed on over 2.5 goals. Everyone. But only one would have cashed 3.5. It's that line. It's that 3.5 line. I think the line here is 3 with the push, but I think to get the 3.5 and get -114 on the under, I could be completely wrong. We could sit here next week and it could be 4-3 and I could be look like a fool. But I'm telling you now, if I'm betting under 3.5 goals at -114, pretty much every week in the Premier League, I'd be happy, man, for the rest of the season. So this is, you got to remember as well, these are 2 sides that were coming into after real painful things that happened to them last week. The VAR decision at Liverpool, that's going to make them sort of be determined and come out here. But you don't know how it's going to affect it. And obviously, Magic and Brighton having that huge, embarrassing 6-1 defeat. And I rattled off all the stats after them big defeats last week. 17 out of 20 of the highest ever losses in the Premier League have cashed unders. And now we've got a match here that every stat and everyone in the world will tell you bet over 3.5, and it will be over 3.5. Both teams will score. But you're taking the most ridiculous lines you've seen this season. -$3 over 2.5. Both teams to score something like it's 3-1 on. I mean, it's just no value. So again, from the price perspective, 3.5 is such a big number compared to 2.5, and to get -114, I'm going under 3.5.
Under 3 on the Asian line is +150, a push, of course, if there are 3 goals in the game, so you can play it different ways if you want to. Let's get some best bets from you. We've had 3 selections apiece. Jack, what's your best bet of the 3 this weekend?
Cards
at United over 4.5. United, Brentford. Nigel?
I'm going to go for Crystal Palace to beat Nottingham Forest at +116, purely and simply because of the difference between the price of -162 when they met at the end of last season compared to +116 today.
Big game of the weekend, big betting game of the weekend. We've swerved. It is, of course, Arsenal versus Manchester City at the Emirates. Nigel, Arsenal are +195, City +145, draw +235. If you had a free $10 play, where would it go?
I would probably bet both teams to score, yes, if I was, but again, it's going to be very low. But I think unlike some of the matches I spoke about, this match could potentially have goals. Other thing is, I think both teams come in with really big injury concerns. Saka obviously is a huge miss for them. Rodri suspended as well for Manchester City. So I would probably keep my money very close to my chest or in my pocket until I found out what the team lines was. I would leave my bet here. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't play this match, because however big a match it is, I think there's going to be some really, really key team news here, which will determine the lines and where the market's going to go.
Minus 155, both teams to score, yes, is short, but that could change. I mean, if Saka doesn't play, such a fantastic player for Arsenal, we're not 100% certain with the injury that he's picked up. Jack, if you had a free $10 play in the big game this weekend?
Yeah, I'd probably want to go on something a little bit higher than what I would suggest. I fancy a draw in this one, to be honest. I think it's going to be one that neither side really want to lose to we'll take the draw and move on with those injury concerns. So I'd probably go with a correct score. Let's go with 2-2.
2-2. There's been a few 2-2s, I think, between the two. Recently, certainly one on New Year's Day, I seem to recall, or was that City 2-1 win? Plenty of value in the game. Lots of in-play markets on Bet Rivers, of course. A week off for you lot next week. I'm on duty, of course. I'm working European qualifiers. I'm in collar, as you can see. Jack, Nigel, Nigel, what are you up to?
I'll be at Wembley watching England play Italy. I'm going to meet the England squad. Well, they're going to meet me.
They're going to meet you, aren't they?
Yeah. I'm going to meet the England squad on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I'm taking.
How is Leah Williamson? She okay? She all right?
Lovely lady. I'm going to meet Harry Kane and all the boys and Jude Bellingham, obviously, and I'm going to meet them on Tuesday and go to the England matches on Friday and the following
Tuesday. Isn't it? It's the Italy game, isn't it? On the
Tuesday, yeah. And I'll go and England play Australia on Friday.
Oh, wonderful, Jack. What are you up to?
I was just going to wonder, are we going to be seeing that on the Instagram account, Nigel?
What's that?
Your trip to...
If mobile phones, if photography permitted, yes, you will.
Okay, superb stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably take in a San Marino game or something like that, yeah.
Shrewd. That's what we like to see. That's the sort of thing that Steve Wiss would be playing on. Don't worry about that. We'll have previews for the European qualifiers. Nigel, Jack, thanks for your company. Good luck with your bets. That is your lot for week 8 of Betting Weekly Premier League show. Stay across all of our selections and content via @BecauseWeWin. Bye for now.